All right, I'm just hoping everybody can see this because now nobody can talk. So we did chapters 7 and 8, and Teresa wasn't gonna be able to make it today because she's at work, like we talked about. So I did get some notes from her. She wanted to specify the parts that she was impressed with how Walt Disney stayed aware of the importance of remembering that we're here for our guests. Because even on the 10th anniversary, he talked about how they'd have like, I think it was like 10 million guests or something like that, and how he was still such a privilege for him and the cast members to serve the guests. And that was a pretty cool thing for him. He was very excited that she was impressed that he still cared about the guest experience even after 10 years in. She sent a quote here. Since our opening 4 years ago, Disneyland has played a host to millions of Southern California families, as well as additional millions of other Americans and foreign visitors from all over the world. All of us at Disneyland appreciate this privilege, and it is my sincere hope that you will find as much pleasure and enjoyment in Disneyland's new adventures this summer as we had in creating them for you. So a lot of this was when they were doing things with Tomorrowland and things like that. Let's see, she also said, in addition, I wrote 2 Walt articles under a cover of a photo of Walt in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle. Walt showed his respect for the public, the 50 million visitors who had already experienced his Magic Kingdom. This 10th centennial souvenir edition is really a birthday card in reverse from all of us at Disneyland to all of you, saying thanks for helping make our first decade so wonderful. We've had a lot of fun playing host to you and your family. That's pretty cool. So she said, I appreciate the humility he kept even after such immense success, which is very cool. Just give a little bit of summary of my stuff here. I liked how Walt Disney, we talked about the story about him being in the cowboy outfit that I'm sure most of us have heard, where the car is going through Frontierland and they see this dusty cowboy figure on the end out there, and the Walt walks up and says, why do you have this car in Frontierland? And how important even for him the show was. And I believe that was before opening, if I'm not mistaken. So even at that time, trying to press into their heads like, it's not okay to have the brick show. And now we're gonna have to, I had a discussion question here. Maybe you guys can answer this while you talk, but how will masks become a part of our ongoing story? Because now we have them. Obviously we can't say the plague, so we're gonna have to figure something else out. Anaheim in the 1940s, had a population of 14,000. And initially the city council was hesitant to approve Disneyland. And Walt took all of them from the city council and took them to Burbank and pitched the idea to them himself, which I thought was a really cool way, because he basically said, like, this isn't going to be a carnival. This is going to be a park that's different than anything ever. So by the end of the first summer after 1955 opening, they had 1 million guests. So it was a huge success. That Black Sunday was not a huge success. If anybody else wants to talk about that, that was pretty interesting. I thought Dixieland at Disneyland was an amazing thing, and I definitely want to bring it back. That's where they would have the, where the Fantasmic is now on the Rivers of America, they would have the floats go around, and they would have like the jazz singers do jazz songs, like basically competing jazz songs as they're floating along. Sounds amazing. There's so much to talk about. I don't want to get through it all, but let's see. Vacationland magazine was another thing I thought was pretty cool, and we should also bring back if we don't have something like it. I don't know. World's Fair was very big for us, because a lot of what we brought to the World's Fair was not only increasing in the technology, but also we brought it back to Disneyland and had people help us pay for it, which is a good idea too. And the one thing I did like in this chapter a lot was talking about who's the audience. While creating scripts for G's Progress Lands, he had he said, who's the audience for this venue? And he said, well, 4 people. Me, my boss, and his 2 bosses. And of course, it wasn't a huge hit, and that's because we do need to respect who our audience is. The audience should never be our bosses. It should be the people that are going to see it, the guests. Oh yes, and then my last one I did want to talk about was the top 10 list of attractions at the fair other than Disney one. All seemed very amazing, and I think I would have loved to have seen them or see them come to any of our parks. Because they seemed really amazing. I will, let's see, I will stop our presentation here and go back to you guys. hopefully you guys like that little presentation. Let's start with Jesse.
No. Okay, got it. Hey guys, so I wanted to do the sign for magic because I just was feeling like we need a little bit of extra magic. So you can do it with 2 hands or you can do it with 1, but you're kind of do like a circle with kind of like a closed O shape. You do a circle and then you like spread out your hands, so it's magic. So you can do it with like 1 hand in a circle or 2 hands magic. So I just thought that was kind of a fun one to do for this week. In regards to the book, in chapter 7, this quote was one that stuck out to me from the first time that I read it. I just feel like it's something that we sometimes forget is so important to Walt and the company, is to always have it grow. It's kind of long, so bear with me, but I just love this quote. So the way I see it, Disneyland will never be finished. It's something we can keep developing and adding to. A motion picture is different. Once it's wrapped up and sent out for processing, we're through with it. If there are things that could be improved, we can't do anything about them anymore. I've always wanted to work on something alive, something that keeps growing. We've got that in Disneyland. So Walt said that through Marty's words, and I love that concept of he wanted to work on something alive. Like Disneyland, as we were talking, I think last week, has just this kind of mythical story about it, and some kids don't even realize that Walt Disney was a real person because it's become so much of what the park is, and that just boggles my mind that people don't realize that Walt is real. And so I don't know, I feel like this quote just kind of really connects to the idea that we are always changing, always growing, and we need to continue doing that and not get stuck in our ways, and things will always change. So that really sticks out to me. I love that one. And then for chapter 8, when he said Walt never hesitated to interweave age and experience with youth and exuberance, I love that about the company, is that we have so many different ages and stages that people are in, and they all contribute to the overall story. And you may not have particular experience in something, but that doesn't matter. You can do it. I think that's the cool thing about training, that we have all these cool opportunities you can do. Like, I like doing art sometimes. Like, I'm not a good artist. I haven't done anything like class-wise or anything like that, but I was able to train and become a personalizer, and I can do art for guests and it lives in their house. And that's just so cool. That's something you may not have realized you could do or you would enjoy doing. The company gives you the opportunity to train and learn something new and find something that you love or are good at. So those 2 things kind of stuck out to me in the book. And in regards to the masks thing, I think just approaching it as like, it's just something going around, like for everyone's safety, we got to wear masks. Like, you don't even have to come up with some inventive thing to explain why we're wearing masks. Just kind of straightforward answer, not necessarily say, oh, it's because of COVID. You can just say, oh yeah, there's this illness going around, we got to wear masks. I think that's maybe the perspective we could go with it. And that's all I got.
I love that. It's definitely alive. And I think it's alive because we do mix that, like the age and the different ages together and the different experience levels. That's to me what I love about Disneyland. Lauren, I'm going to have you go next.
Hi guys, sorry I missed last week, but really excited to be back. So I don't really have much to say except from it's a combination of chapter 7 and 8. I think it's really interesting how he was talking about how the greatest piece of urban design is in the United States is Disneyland, which is the title of the first chapter. But I don't know, it kind of just made me think, oh yeah, it is a streamlined story that has lasted for so many years and entire generations of people to come and have fun. And it does exactly what it was intended to do. It's a place to have fun and for people to come into this environment and kind of escape. And then it made me think of in chapter 8 when they were talking about the World's Fair and about how there's like some engineers and designers who had gone to the World's Fair and said like, oh, it inspired them in their careers and it set the path for their future. And it kind of just reminds me of like all of our careers at Disney or for future generations, and how the person that we're helping, like the guests that we're helping, we can inspire them to do better or to even be the next artist, to be the next Imagineer, or someone who's going to change the world. And I think that's an important role in our parks, and why honestly it might be so important for us to open up and to give people that hope. As far as the masks go, I haven't really thought of it that much. So, I mean, I'm really curious to listen to what everyone else is going to say, but I don't know, that's a curious thing to figure out how we're going to like get it involved with the story.
Yeah, me too. I wonder how we're gonna do it, but I know one of the geniuses probably be Tamara, because I'm gonna have her go next. She's gonna figure it out. Tamara, you tell us how we're gonna do the masks.
Well, I get to be the well. Before we get to that part, I was really struck by coming from an attractions background and a foods background and having such a wide variety of jobs over the years. The time that he took to write letters to John Lasseter and the people that were following him in Imagineering about something so simple as the word ride. And that one little story struck me because it is such a simple little word, but it has such a huge impact on the difference between what an attraction is versus what a ride is. And that for him to say that a ride is at Universal Studios, Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Knott's Berry Farm, we do an attraction. We do an immersive experience on all of our attractions. And we as cast members, myself included, have shortened it to ride because it's easier to say. So that kind of resonated with me of learning how to help our guests understand what the importance is. And I would now go forward and talk to cast members about our shots and looking about what the story is and understanding the story and what the immersion and the attraction piece is for our cast working in the shots, because I know some of them kind of feel lost, and we were getting there with the Red Apple program. I don't know what's going to happen with that after we get back to work. So I think it's still important for us to keep thinking about that and how we can teach our cast and ourselves how to create that attraction in a store setting. The other thing is back in chapter 20 about how the structures influenced and went on to influence, I forget what his name was, Ishaki something, I think, who went on, he was so influenced by the World's Fair that he actually went on to build the Twin Towers in New York. And those were such iconic buildings that with so many people, almost as much as the Statue of Liberty. I think it's easy enough to make that correlation. But there is one story here that was quintessential Walt, because we always talk about the story about how he wanted to build Disneyland so parents and children had someplace they can go to experience together. But when the reporter, Norma Lee Browning, writing about Epcot in the Chicago Tribune, asked Walt about his drive to create new concepts, Walt's response was typical and duly noted by Browning. "Oh, you sound like my wife," he said, with an impatient gesture and a sip of his early morning coffee. "When I started on Disneyland, she used to say, 'But why do you want to build an amusement park? They're so dirty.' And I told her that's just the point. Mine wouldn't be." And the fact that we still carry that 65 years later, and he was still explaining that 10 years after his park opened, it's again that reminder of we are here to create this wonderful experience for our guests. And I guess it always comes back to our cast and our guests. That's what everything usually comes back to, and how Walt and his Imagineers and his openness and fearlessness in tapping people who may not have had the skill set on paper, but he had the faith and the confidence that they could do. And that's what we see in you as leads. And it's, what do you bring? What are you showing? What's the energy level, the magic that you bring? So that's me. And now for masks, well, I actually had a funny idea about the masks. I thought it would be funny. will not happen, but I thought it would be funny if we could do themed masks based on the stores you worked in. So if you're in the Fantasyland area, you would have a town's person. So what will be in the town? So if you're going to be a baker, a butcher, a candlestick maker, pick a role, and you would have a mask that reflects that. If you're in Small World, you could pick your favorite doll, or you could pick a Yeti, or, you know, and if you're at Toontown, you can pick your favorite Fab Five, and you can represent that way. So everybody gets to show a little bit about their own personal style, and we get to have fun at the same time.
I like that. It's like a red apple masks. That's really cool.
Yes.
That's a great idea. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably won't go anywhere, but hey.
Yeah, spending a year in attractions, I cannot tell you how many times I got in trouble for using the word ride. Because you know, from stores, I'm like, the rides are, oh, I mean, the attractions are over there. Sorry. But yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's just the pride we take in our part.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Vanessa. You want to go next?
Hi guys. Okay, so I had the same quote written down that Jesse said about how it's different from a movie, and it's just kind of going off what he said, that we can Disneyland's never going to stop growing, and it's just that open opportunity for improvements, for new ideas and everything. And I think for me that was kind of inspiring, just because our opportunities are not ideas, our I guess our options are endless in how we can improve and how just as a whole we can make everything better. And I liked how I kind of related. There was that guy, the gentleman, Tom, hold on. Sorry, my little bookmarks came out. But he was talking about how he went to the World's Fair, and that he was 8 years old, and that set him up for like the rest of his life. And I remember the first time I went to like an expo, and I saw one of the projects they were working on. It was a plant, and they were able to have it play music. So if you touched a certain part of the plant, it would play a different note. And I thought that didn't even come across as an idea for me. And just for someone to think of that, and not only that, but they executed it, and it was just amazing. Like, that's just what it reminded me of. And for the masks, I have no idea. Because you don't want to kind of bring the magic into it, I guess, because you don't want to taint that magic for a child or anything like that. So how we go about it is gonna need to have purpose and like a true meaning behind it, I guess. So I got.
Yeah, it's Tom Fitzgerald. I wrote it down because I thought that part fascinated me so much, because I don't know about you guys, but when I went on Rise of Resistance, that's how I felt. Like, we brought all of the music and the setting and the technology all came together in one ride. And it was just like that moment for me where I was like, I don't know, 10, coming into Disneyland for the first time, looking around going, I feel like that again. So I thought that was pretty cool that we still are doing that, even for our jaded cast members. Let's go with Judy next.
Hey guys, so I interpreted a theme for each chapter. For chapter 7, I saw it as the resiliency chapter, because Marty mentioned, like, or actually corroborated the true story and what was false in Black Friday, which was the opening day of Disneyland, and how Walt already had his ideas on how to improve upon it, and how Walt took the attractions that he thought about for the World's Fair were going to be based, their successes at the World's Fair was going to be based on whether it was going to be in a permanent attraction at Disneyland, and about how almost every situation, every new idea that Walt and his team had was never successful at the beginning. You know, it was always kind of in some degree a disaster that they quickly learned about, you know, and that seems to be the tradition for Disneyland as a company as a whole, because every time we have a new idea, something that we're gonna, you know, introduce to the world, we have some learnings that we always have on the launching day or the first day or the day that it's premiered or the day that it debuts. We always seem to have like, okay, so that didn't go perfectly. What are we going to learn from this to avoid it in the future? But again, there's always going to be a problem that will present itself. And this company has learned from Walt on how to not dwell on it and be like, oh my God, we're total failures. Why do we do this? But just like, how are we going to learn from it, grow from it, and improve and succeed because of it. The quote I really liked, and it's because, you know, Marty was the writer. He said, when you are creating Disney magic, the words to describe it should support the magical experiences. So, and that involved in the magazines, you know, like they had the great idea of having this magazine that was originally Disneyland Holiday, and then they went into Vacationland magazine that was distributed a few miles out in different cities of, you know, a day's drive to encourage, you know, guests from not too far away to come visit and want to visit Disneyland. But, you know, it's just, how do you convince people that don't have tangible proof that Disney is a great place to visit, but the words in the magazines, you know? And then for chapter 8, the theme was, you know, respecting everyone's contribution. You know, it's not about how much experience you have or whether you have a master's degree or your PhD or whatever in whatever expertise field that you can add to the company. It's just, if you are passionate about learning, you do have that factor to contribute and have value into the company. Another quote is, one of the lessons I learned in our creative work for the World's Fair was never to underestimate the talents of my Disney associates. You know, so just because, one of the greatest learnings I had, and I think I mentioned it before, is understanding that just because someone has been a lead for 2 weeks does not mean they have less value than someone that's been a lead for 2 years or 2 decades. You know, we all have a different perspective, and it's important to respect each other's point of view and develop and grow from that. So that's 2 of the learnings I got from both chapters. As far as the mask thing, I think I'm not a magical person. I'm not like overzealous or anything. I'm more of a realist, and I'm gonna tell it to you like it is. And for me, wearing a face mask is courtesy. You know, I don't know what my health is, but I'm not gonna risk your life for my pride and convincing others that I don't have COVID, because I don't know. So I'm going to respect you and let you know, like, I'm not sure, but I'm not going to run that risk because I respect you enough to protect you. So as my guest, you are a VIP, you're important, and I'm going to protect you by, you know, covering myself and not exposing you to what I could have, you know. So that's one way we can tell our guests, like, as a courtesy to you, I'm wearing the mask.
I like that a lot. Respect and courtesy are good answers for that question, obviously. I also like your themes. From now on, I want themes from you. That's great. That's a great way to think of our chapters. Especially helps me remind me of what they're about a lot. Jenna, do you want to go next?
Hello. So sorry I missed last week. I was quite literally stuck in New York for 12 hours. It's kind of a long story, but I'm back and I'm happy to be back because it was quite the adventure trying to get here. I thought it was really funny because Tamara, I literally wrote down the exact same thing that you did about the rides, but I have a funny story about that because when I read it, he was talking about when he was at the police station office, and then he overheard at the ticket booth, the guests kept saying, well, I want to do this and I want to do this, but I don't want to ride the rides. And I immediately like stopped reading, and in my head was like, are you kidding me? For 65 years, guests cannot figure out how to ask a question to us. I immediately like got stuck on that. I like stopped reading even for a minute because I'm so stuck on like, I cannot believe for 65 years we've been answering the question, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? So when I was reading this, I was like, just thought it was really funny. So then I finally started reading the rest of it. And then I felt really, really dumb because when I'm sitting here making fun of guests, how he interpreted it was, wow, I'm going to really listen to the guests and hear what they're saying and realizing we created something more. And that's why we are turning it, instead of a ride, into an attraction. And then I felt really dumb for all these years of me calling it a ride or thinking it was silly or thinking or not actually hearing the guests when they're saying the 3 o'clock parade, because we find humor in that so often. But I really like how he interpreted it, that he saw it simply as, wow, the guests are right, and we created something more. And I really like that, like how he saw that, because it's something that I definitely did not. I also really liked when they went to the World Fair and Walt said, like, you know, what do your spouses think? And nobody answered. And he immediately called the company and said, you know, bring everybody's spouses here. And I thought that was really cool because it shows, like, even back then, it didn't matter what was going on. It didn't matter how many hours they were working. He still wanted them to care about family. I talk with my hands, so I'm sorry I keep moving the phone. So for the masks, I completely agree with everyone, but we have to be realistic about it. Everybody in reality walking through those gates, for 4 months, we've heard nothing than something about coronavirus in some way, shape, or form. So it's not going to be like something that no guest knows what it is, but that's what people come to Disneyland because they're trying to escape reality. They don't want to think about coronavirus. They don't want to think about what's going on in the world. They're going there because they want to celebrate their family and try to get away from the real world for a minute. So as much as, yes, we definitely need to be realistic about it because every guest in reality absolutely knows why we're wearing masks. CNN the other day went on and on about the stormtroopers in front of Disney World that were teaching people how to social distance. They got a kick out of that. These are people from CNN. You know how terrible CNN can be. And they went on and on about how awesome they thought that they brought the magic to CNN. How crazy is that? About social distancing because the stormtroopers were doing it. And so we really do have an opportunity to do that with the masks as well. So there's a few different ways I think you can interpret it. One, I think that would be really simple is we're about to open Marvel Land. Everything this summer is going to be about Marvel. We don't actually know when it's going to open, obviously now, but it's still going to be about that. It's really simple to tell a kid if they say, why are you wearing a mask? Because you know that's when we're going to hear it, is when a kid wants to be snarky. Every superhero I've ever met wears a mask. They keep people safe, so we want to be superheroes too. Like there is a way where you can be realistic, but still make it a positive experience and make the guests smile or laugh. Or you can say, Tinkerbell spread way too much pixie dust right now, so if we wear a mask, we won't think too many happy thoughts and fly away because I want to stay in Disneyland. Like there's definitely a way that we can. I agree. I don't think we need to go over the top with the reason because I think that's too much, especially when the guests absolutely know coronavirus, why we are absolutely wearing a mask. But there is a way to keep the positive thought around it so we can keep the experience going in a happy way rather than bringing reality back into something that nobody wants to think about at the time, which is thinking about coronavirus again. Anyways, that's what I got.
I was thinking about when we were designing some of the original stuff we were going to do for like the Red Apple stuff. We were talking about the hat shops, and we were going to specifically Mad Hatter. We were just going to say, well, the Queen of Hearts demands that you can't have this on the hat, and that's why we can't write it on the hat. And yeah, there you go, like theme it little ways like that. Like the Queen of Hearts told me I can't. Yeah. I have to wear this mask, so I'm doing it or whatever. It's a good way. I like, especially with the stormtroopers. That's great. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you one more question though, Jenna.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little more about that plane ride? Because it's hilarious.
Well, I completely am convinced now. The only reason why they're telling everyone not to fly right now is because they furloughed all their mechanics. Because I literally had 3 different planes that all had mechanical issues. And they're all like major ones. The plane's brakes weren't working, so we couldn't take that one. So they had us go back to the gate in New York. And then 2 hours later, we boarded another plane and we got on that one and they couldn't pressurize the cabin. It was like the pilot literally got on and said, said over the intercom that he, not once in his 30-year career has he had more than one plane that was broken. But they had all these spare planes because of coronavirus and they weren't flying any of them. So they just kept trying new planes, but all these planes had issues. It was the most ridiculous. We were supposed to take off at 6 p.m. I didn't leave New York. I think it was like 1 in the morning. It was like 12 or 1 by the time we actually left New York. So I finally landed in Florida time here around like 7 a.m. It was completely crazy. So I agree, don't fly right now. But I will tell you the planes did a really good job of like trying to be safe because they handed everyone a towel. So you like with sanitizer, so you wipe down everything yourself so you knew it was okay. And they sprayed down the plane before getting on, which is why it was stuck for 2 hours at the gate because they had to clean it. So I was really, really impressed with like how well they did everything. And I will tell you that every guest that got on the plane, they knew the rule was to wear a face mask and no one questioned it. We didn't have there was not a single person that was like, oh, I'm not wearing it. Or, you know, you can't make me or freedom or no, we didn't have any of that. Everybody knew like what's going on in the world and they put one on.
Well, that is heartening. That's a great end to that story for sure. All right, Haley, do you want to finish this off?
I also missed last week because I had to change a tire. Fun time. So one, Jenna, I'm definitely taking that Tinkerbell pixie dust thing. Definitely gonna use that one. But I love reading about like the early Disneyland days. I think it's super interesting. And one of the big takeaways I got from chapter 8 was actually what Judy touched on about one of the lessons I learned in our creative work for the World's Fair was never to underestimate the talents of my Disney associates, because I also think everyone, especially everyone on our team, has a different like talent and a different strength. And I think we kind of rely on each other, and I think we definitely will have to rely on each other more when we go back, as well as like the partners that we have in our areas and those relationships that we've built to create the little like Fantasyland Toontown community that we have. And that's really it. Yeah, I think I was like 3 pages shy from finishing chapter 8 last night.
No, but you're right. The neighborhood concept is going to be so important for us.
I'm ready to
help with attractions, spacing people out. They're probably going to have to help us with stores. I wanted to just share one more thing that I thought was pretty funny. I'm sure you guys thought it was too, when they were doing the Carousel of Progress, and it was the morning they were going to show investors that night. Walt came in and did the first show, and literally none of the scenes worked. The animatronics didn't move at all, and it was the night before the big investors came, and Walt was especially irritated and just said it better work tonight, and it did. And I thought, you know what, sometimes that's how our company is. It's the night before, it's the morning of, and things aren't working, but we always seem to make it work. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everybody, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording as well.